Thanks for coming to the first annual largest keyboard meetup. Hope y'all brought your best. I mean the biggest. Well, check this out. This is my biggest right here. Bro, who brings a 65% to the largest keyboard meetup? No bro, you got these side buttons right here, man. It's definitely bigger than the standard. You want to see something swole? This is the Class 80. This is like TKL plus. That's cute, but have you heard about 100%?
Excuse me, do you like the big keyboard?
Yeah, you're in the right place.
Shh! This is my keyboard, Pro Max. You try? I think you are very open-minded.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. You know, I've been looking at so many HE keyboards lately that I kind of just needed a break from them. And break I got with this, the jumbo-sized OE93 by AnyKey. This thing just looked so unique, and it's also unapologetically large. How large, you ask? You have to be pretty open-minded to try it. It's pretty much getting to the magnum end of the keyboard spectrum. It's big, but it's not the only reason why you should consider the OE93. Size isn't everything, guys. It's also like how you... Never mind. Let's get started. Okay, so as soon as you open the box, right, you will immediately realize what you're dealing with. It's something large. I mean, look at this thing. So the OE93 is not a standard layout keyboard. It actually took inspiration from a classic, right? The OG IBM Model FAT. Just the looks, not the buckling spring though. So the design, it's kind of like almost like a 1800-ish keyboard with the obviously full-size numpad on the right. But instead of having the F row on the top, it has them on the left side instead. On the top though, you actually do have some navigational buttons, or like media play buttons actually. Speaking of media play buttons, they actually feel just like a console controller button, so it's pretty nice. In addition, you have the massive rocker wheel on the right, which is usually for volume, as well as the dedicated button for a calculator. You know, for calculating, since you have the numpad right there. You know, for calculating. What's interesting is that the center of the keyboard is essentially a 65% keyboard, right? But all in all, I really like that the OE93 is actually fairly symmetrical overall. While the OE93 comes in 4 different colors, I do have the eggshell gray right here. I feel that given the texture of the finish, this is more of a painted surface kind of treatment versus anodization or e-coating. But the finish was even, and I didn't see any issues, so I actually really like the yellow details that this keyboard has, and it creates like a nice visual that I really do enjoy. If you pan around the rear, you can see that the keyboard, the OE93, takes a type of like a floating slab design, with pretty much the rear of the keyboard just like hanging over like this. Now, if you remove the top, you can actually see the upper button assembly right here. This kind of design like gives me a little bit of Angry Meow vibes right here. And you can also see that the cover below, that like hides the battery inside. It has like a 6000 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty standard. And it's finished off with a nice PVD metal badging above that actually is the storage for the 2.4 GHz receiver. Speaking of the 2.4 GHz receiver, let's talk about the PCB now, shall we? Okay, so this PCB is tri-mode capable, which means Bluetooth, 2.4 GHz, and wired. The PCB is massive, like crazy massive. Like, take a look at this in comparison to a puny little 60% PCB. It's like double the size. It's interesting that AnyKey decided to keep this as one giant PCB instead of cutting them into like 3 pieces, like most others would do in this situation. The PCB itself is kind of a raw finish, and you only get the choice of a standard 1.6mm thickness and no flex cuts whatsoever. It also features south-facing Gateron hot swap sockets and is VIA compatible, which is great. If the keyboard has a big PCB, what else is big? Yeah, the plate. What else could it be? OE93 is simple. It only comes in like one choice, a classic aluminum plate. And it's finished in this like orangey color to match the outside accents, I guess. Not at this point. Like, you will notice that there are tabs on both the plate as well as the PCB. Why is that? Well, because this keyboard can take multiple mounts, which, you know, some of which go to the PCB and some of which go to the plate. So if you take a look here, you can use these little silicone gasket dumbbells for the PCB gasket mount. They just kind of plug into the tabs like this right here. Or you can go to a more traditional method and do the plate mounted gasket. Or you can truly go OG style and go top mounting as well. So we're going to explore all three of these mount options later. Finally, the foam. Yes, this definitely has it, and yes, it's as big as everything else, like in this keyboard. You start with the PET sheet below, which is also like anti-static. Then you got the under PCB case foam. Then you got the PE foam, and also finally the plate foam. Alright, let's get this big boy put together and see what it's all about. But before we do that, let's go to a quick word from our sponsor today, PCBWay. PCBWay is an online service that helps you print PCBs, do 3D printing, or even CNC machining. If you're an aspiring keyboard designer or whatever else designer, you can take your design and simply upload it to get something made quick. Or, if you have the source code for a PCB that you already have and you need a replacement, you can also get that done as well. They can handle all types of PCBs from your simple single layer designs to multi-layer stacks. Beyond PCBs, if you want to try making your own case, PCBWay can machine that as well. Now, a very exciting new service that PCBWay offers, OEM. Instead of just making a single component, you can actually task PCBWay to be an OEM manufacturer and make the whole thing. They can do anything from PCBs to CNC cases to even assembly. And using global manufacturing, they can offer very competitive prices. Is there a keyboard on the horizon? Well, check out OEM at PCBWay. Okay, since this OE93 can be done in like 3 ways, let's try it all 3. Besides the mounts, we will keep everything else the same. So first up is actually what I was the most intrigued by, right? I thought this would be the best, the PCB mount. So if you have these little silicone dumbbells that you plug into the PCB itself, like if you go into the plate mounted gasket, you will fit these little gasket socks onto the plate ends instead. Finally, you know how top mount works, right? Like goes to the top mount with the screw. But the OE93 does take it one step further by incorporating a little silicone sleeve dampener, kind of like a burger mount. Now, due to the sheer size of this keyboard, I decided to use the foam pack, right? Because there's a lot of space in there. Well, everything except the PE foam, since we all know what that sounds like, and yes, it makes keyboards sound very similar to each other. So for the switches, I'm going to use a set of Kinetic Labs Butter, which are a smooth linear switch made by HMX. I really enjoyed these last time, and I think they do a fantastic job of matching this orangey yellow plate, so why not? To finish things off, I used a set of PBTFans Twist. It's not every day you find a perfectly matched keycap to a keyboard, like perfectly. In this case, the gray and the yellow. So they all just match, like it goes well sold together, like it was made for this keyboard. Okay, so here is the finished product. I think it obviously looks fire. This thing looks more like some kind of maybe like a terminal or like a professional tool versus a keyboard on a desk, but you know, what about everything else though? Let's first take a look at the flex. I'm going to show you the flex from the softest to the stiffest. As you'd expect, going from like the PCB gasket mount is actually going to be the most bouncy as well as flexible, right? Then comes to the plate mounted gasket, and finally the top mount. However, even the top mount is actually very bouncy in this keyboard due to like the silicone burger mounting, so not too big of a difference between that and the gasket plate mount. Finally, what about the sound? Let's check them out. Okay, so what is your favorite? For me, I felt that the PCB gasket mount was the most pleasing to my ears. It's actually the most subdued out of the three, but I felt it was like the most refined sound as well. Then you got like the boisterous typing sounds from the top mount as expected, and finally the plate gasket mount, which is like somewhat in the middle between the two. So my recommendation is actually go with the PCB gasket mount. It just overall the best representation of this keyboard from a feel as well as sound perspective. Okay, so what is this OE93 all about? Well, it's a break, right? From the standard keyboard you're seeing like all over the place, from both the custom as well as the pre-built space. If you got the space for it, obviously, it's actually a unique piece of tool that has a good potential, right, to add to your collection. Well, if you have the funds for it. The OE93 is not a cheap keyboard whatsoever. While it is an in-stock keyboard, so it's not a group buy, it does start at $399. Yes, definitely a mid-high tier price point at this point, but I feel that it does offer enough to justify that price. I mean, you're essentially getting like 260% worth of keyboards with this guy. So, good value, I guess. Speaking of size, let's do some size comparisons too, shall we? Yes, so against the 60%, it's not a fair game, I know. But what about against the 100%? Yes, even against the 100%, this thing is about 2 inches longer and goes much deeper than 100%. So much that it feels indecent. It's not perfect, right? I know, there's some oddness here in terms of like the keycap choices that you have to use. Like for example, the left shift as well as the right shift, they're not traditional sizes. Just keep that in mind. So if you're looking for something unique, like a classic inspiration from the bygone era, the OE93 is actually a good option for you. It's kind of pricey, I do admit, but it does offer overall design, the performance, and also I think the uniqueness. Along with the PBTFans Twist, this came out looking fantastic, and it's something that's going to remain in my collection like this for a while. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more content for you in the future. Thanks.